Hey, I'm Lacking Logic. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about evolution and environment and the duality these two represent in our progression of life. As you can see, I got the sun and the earth on polar opposites because the sun is what represents our evolutionary process. Now, it's not wholeheartedly a Darwin theory type thing. Like evolution is just a very good word to explain because we know what it means, right? So we use it because we know what it means, not just, oh, it's because Darwin invented it or some shit, like that's Darwin emphasized the process of evolution. Cool. But I'm not using it because of Darwin. I'm using it because it's a good understanding of what we represent, the progression of life. And environment is represent with Earth, right? Because the Earth itself is just a planet. It needs something to produce life, which is your active current. And the Earth is so it's a consuming. It's a physical world that it's constantly consuming, right? So we're gonna have two different types of resistance on Earth, and because it's a destructive current, everything that's here, it fades, it dies eventually, right? But the process is that life maintains through death, right? So it'll always be there as long as we have an active current, okay? And our environment is very important. Out of anything that even Darwin explained, our environment is the most important part, because technically you can get life anywhere on the planet as long as the environment houses the capabilities for whatever species is living there to evolve. And the explanation of evolution being up here to the sun is because the sun is it's where our insight comes from. In a sense, it's where our guidance comes from. You can walk around on Earth and be hungry but not know which fruit to pick. But having the insight that allows you to tap into, well, in this scenario, it would be your ancestral, like memories come from your ancestors. And it's not just from one life, it's from all life. That's what the sun carries, is our guidance to help navigate the physical world. That's why we represent it as God, is because it's the insight, it's the energy, it's this, it's everything we explain. And this is kind of the theory on why it's based on, like, God's based on male, because I'm not stating that God being male means good, Satan meaning female means bad. I'm not stating that at all. If you've watched my previous videos, you would understand that this is all how you have a progression of life. One doesn't outweigh the other just because the argument is strong for, oh, well, we suffer in this world, so therefore it's bad. It's like we're always going to suffer. Things have to die for things to regrow. Things have to die for us to learn from the past generation, right? Because if that weren't the case, then we would be having an example would be like having an old person in a company for over 50 years and they are set in their ways. You'll never get them to change, which that's not how life, like, a lot of old people will hold on to the life that they've created based on their environment, and then trying to let that go to be something different is a no-go. But in a sense, doing so is pretty much giving up on your ego, because you don't need to do like a career for 40 years, 50 years. You know what I mean? Like, our hard work used to come from hunting, gathering, uh, taking care of our tribes. And I'm like, that would obviously be, in a sense, true, because like we really have to start learning from the animal kingdom more. The animals have been here longer than we have. Majority of life on this planet has been here way longer than we have. And we're no longer tapped into, like, consciousness is up here as well, because our physical bodies are on Earth. So we're no longer tapped into our consciousness because we're just conscious beings. You know what I mean? Like we're awake, but the only thing we're doing is, like going to a 9 to 5, finding ways to quiet the voice in our head, or going out of our way to not help people. And let's be honest, all of us do that shit. I don't care if you, oh, I help at the soup kitchen, ho ho ho. You're basing your whole life on your morals. That means you're still lost, because you're not accepting that bad things can happen, and you're actively trying to force the world to not suffer, and you can't do that. That's what religion is as well. It's trying to force the world to not suffer. That's why they created the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is a metaphysical or a mythical place, but it would be technically a metaphysical. But it's a place where apparently no suffering is going to happen, no death, no crude, no sin, nothing. Like, to think, and like that's like basing the idea that your active current is more important than your destructive current, right? Because you're trying to get to heaven, and when you're up here in heaven, you're no longer able to experience the physical world, and you're just living in the flow of memory, which means that you're going to be, it's like laying in a river, right? And it's like laying in a river and just letting it take you, and like forever, you're just laying in a river forever. You can't walk on land, you can't do this, you can't do that. You're just laying there, enjoying the flow. And that's okay, fine, if you want to do that. But don't expect that that's how how you're going to continue, because eventually you're gonna miss the earth. You're gonna miss what it's like to be suffering. Now, a lot of philosophy understands that, because they accept suffering. Good example, Alan Watts, very brilliant man. Honestly, very brilliant. I do recommend his books. But mainly insecurities is a very big one, because a lot of people have insecurities. But a lot of people judge him because he committed suicide, in a sense. He drank himself to death. He was an addict. But that does not take away from his mind, from what he's developed philosophically. You want to be, I would never listen to a man who drinks himself to death. Then who are you going to listen to? You need to have people that have experienced the destructive currents, like, wholeheartedly. They've accepted, they're not trying to manipulate the world to make them feel better, in a sense. Sure, he chose drinking as an addiction, and he smoked too. But those are common addictions that a majority of the population have to deal with. But he was coping. We all cope. We're all hypocrites, whether you want to fucking explain it or not. But that should never take away from your ideas, because the destructive current is just as important as the active current. And you can't force the world to not suffer, because that's how you kick yourself out of the evolutionary process. And as humans, we have stopped evolving, in my opinion, and pretty much have de-evolved, in my sense. Like we're no longer, like, we're cutting ourselves off from the natural world, because those who mutilate their bodies because they don't understand what their gender is. First things first, male and female are the production, right? That's the production that you're doing. These are products of Earth, right? Sex is the game, in a sense. That's the play. These are the producers. Sex is the play. Your gender and sex are not the same. But stating that you're a male and trying to be a female will not make you a female. You will not be able to bear children, and vice versa. And if you mutilate your bodies, you never will. If you take hormone blockers, and if you continue, you will never. It's the same thing with homosexuality. You're two females, and it's no disrespect to these types of people who want to live their lives. You wholeheartedly can, but just know this: you will not have a child with two females. You cannot have a child with two males, which means you're cut off from the evolutionary process. You're cut off from anything. You won't be able to reproduce. You can, but you would have to do it with a female or a male. But you can't do it with the same sex. That's all that shit means. There's no disrespect there. There's no neener. There's no fuck you. It's just common sense. If you can't produce children, then your lineage will not move on, right? That means that in my opinion, homosexuality and transgenderism is taught. It's not a form of natural occurrence. And usually that type of stuff happens in societies, large civilizations. It doesn't happen in nature. Oh, ducks, this, that, the other. It's like, yeah, but the minority does not outweigh the majority. Just because a small knit group of some species do this type of behavior, they're not mutilating their body to be a different gender. They understand that in order to reproduce, they have to sleep with the opposing sex, right? That you cannot produce life without that. So cutting ourselves off from the evolutionary process makes us unnatural. And now we follow provided intelligence rather than natural intelligence. We follow man's law instead of nature's law. And then we were confused and pissed when nature fights back because we don't know how to handle that. I've said before, that's when we started hiding from nature. We started not trusting her no more, is when she starts taking things away that we want to keep around. A big one too, our environment produces how we develop in life, right? So if you have two lions, Lion A and Lion B, and Lion A lives on predators are a very good example. I'll get into that type of stuff a little later, but they keep a territory, right? So it's easy to kind of pick out the type of environments you want to kind of study. You get a Lion A, he's on a plane and 50 kilometers, whatever, that he takes on. And he's got plenty of food. He's got plenty of water. Hunting's easy. Sleeping's easy. That does not make him not a lion, but that just means he's on easy street, right? So Lion A is living the good life. You can represent that however you want. Lion B, you see his territory. It's a bit smaller, but it's rugged. Food's a little scarce. Water's a little scarce. He's got to climb everywhere to get places. It's not flat like Lion A's plane. And like, he doesn't necessarily like it, but he's had to live in it. He's adapting to it. Now, what do you think would happen if somebody that had to, or the lion that had to pretty much test its limits as a lion in the environment that it was in, would compare to the lion that has had pretty much everything easy street? If that lion ended up taking over that territory, it would absolutely take over that lion instantly. It would not stand a chance. And that's not stating this lion didn't understand that it wasn't at its peak performance, because it didn't stress its body out, stress its mind out to develop more of a hardening, in a sense, on his species, as lion B did, right? But if the lion is aware, if and like we don't necessarily wholeheartedly 100% think that animals are necessarily aware, but I would mind that dolphins are proof that humanity's doing it wrong. I'll get into that later. But our the stress that the lion, if he's aware, lion A can create stronger potential in himself by, well, he could, just because he has an abundance of food doesn't mean he has to indulge. Same thing with water. He could sleep outside when it's raining, or when he needs to. He's trying to create stress in his environment because he doesn't get much. You get what I mean? And doing so can put him closer to par with lion B, right? It may not full-heartedly, because living in this lion B's area could create a form of aggression or pittiness in himself, type of shit, wanting more, because that's the opposite of. So we just talked about the opposite of lion A's potential, where he could stress himself out. Now let's think about the opposite of lion B. That lion B takes over the territory of lion A. Well, then now this lion doesn't know how to stop indulging. You know what I mean? And becomes a very lazy lion. And that could very well be a possibility as well, right? Because our environment's going to determine how we're going to evolve. And predators are a very good sense, because they pick territory, and you can determine how that lion's going to develop based on their territory. Now, there might be different attributes as well, like if, say, lion B came over and he was respectful, had children, that child could very well carry the stronger genes of his father, right? And become an even better lion, if you want to put it like that. But that's because he's got the memory of the old environment. He's been through that stress. And this is a general assumption. It's known. It's that scenario where a lion holds on, not the lion, but memory being held on for the next generation. That's absolutely true. You know what I mean? Like, we learn from our past generations, even if it's not taught to us, in a sense, right? But how we're going to evolve, or how we're going to endure our environment when we're trying to shut it off, at least in the human sense. And that's kind of where I see the idea, like, humans think that they're so above all species that they don't even consider themselves a part of the animal kingdom anymore. Like, we're a whole nother subspecies. And like, we're a part of this world. We're not aliens. We're not cross-genetic mutations, nothing. The reason why we look the way we are is because we have done so unbelievable damage to our evolutionary process, because we have destroyed our environment, or at least closed ourselves off to it and used it, manipulated it in our favor. You know what I mean? And selfishly, as humans, selfishly. In a sense, like the destructive current of the earth is, it's in a sense, in our aspect, not even a thought, especially in religion. It's not even, the only thing we care about is Satan. I mean, it makes sense, but we don't talk about like the benefits of earth. And when you think that God created everything, nope, he's just the sun that provides us the energy and insight to manipulate this world. And I think there is a path to humanity. I think we should be trying to reach a balanced path rather than trying to take these high ups and downs. You know what I mean? And, I guess that's kind of where, uh, like, it's not a necessity to be balanced in order for life to continue, right? But it just makes it hard for a lot of people to understand that eventually your environment's going to crumble around you and Mother Nature's going to take over again, because that's just what she does. Ask Atlantis, ask Noah, the Great Flood. How much? I mean, like, there's a bunch of shit. Mother Nature to Pompeii. Mother Nature takes out everything, anything that we can build up, but constantly going back to that. I mean, if anything was the epiphany of insanity, it's our goals on trying to reach a utopia. You can't happen. It's constantly destroyed, yet we constantly rebuild, and we lose the memory of Earth because we're no longer connected to our consciousness. We're just conscious, so we lose our connection to even Earth, where, because we're manipulated. That's plain and simple. But like, and like the aspect of a destructive current, the earth consumes everything. And if you want to take the idea of like the sun and the earth being like static energy on your arm, it's going to raise the hairs. So when you cut off that connection of static energy, your hairs are going to fall back down. Well, when they fall back down, they fall on the planet and it's consumed. And it's, like I said, it's designated to Satan, right? The Garden of Eden is the surface of Earth. It's Mother Nature. And Satan is designated to the Earth because the Earth is constant suffering, or what we represent as suffering. But the center of the earth is our purification center. It's the pits of hell. That's what it is. And if you want to put an assumption on it, if I could give a gradual idea, there's 9 layers of earth before you get to the pit, right? And that's either oil, water, dirt, clay, rock, different, because different rocks are even altered by their environment, whether it's pressurized, heat, underwater, purified. You know what I mean? Like obsidian. What's obsidian? It's like the purest stone you can find, where it's like, it's sharp, it's see-through, it's like, it's glass, like the impurities there. It's like, it's pure. In my sense, it's purified. That's purified land, and that gets shot out, crunched up, and it builds more land. And that even shows that there's volcanoes that build their own islands, pretty much. You know what I mean? Like, but stating that the center of the earth is your purification center, then the volcanoes are the way back up to Eden, right? So if you're somebody who is, I don't know, following just Satan, you're no longer following God, because in a religious aspect, the ones that are believing in God only believe in God. Those who don't believe in God, I wouldn't say don't believe in God, but those who believe in Satan or the material world, or force, whatever, because This place is built on manipulation. The earth is human manipulation. And like the people that do that, well, they're causing more suffering than there needs to be. It's like extra suffering. And they know that. But those types of people, like, they're not gonna understand like the true meaning of the sun or active current or God, right? So in order, like, they die or whatever, they could be people that have bad souls or whatever. That goes through a purification process. Like, because your evolution and environment are very much psychological as they are physical. So you represent the idea of the earth and the center of the earth as an idea to represent our psychological development. Like, if you're a bad person and you think you're a bad person and you do bad things, then that you're a sinner in a sense, and you have to be purified in the pits of hell in order to regain your access back to the Garden of Eden, or to get to the opportunity to reconnect with God. Like, that's the epiphany of religion right there. God isn't a special being. God gave us the ability to use our eyes, in a sense. You know what I mean? But the earth gave us our eyes, right? It's like a computer. A computer can be absolutely astonishing, but it ain't fucking shit without $20 power cord. You know what I mean? So you need the electrical current that comes from the sun to produce the environment, which, like in this case, would be your computer, if we want to talk about it that way. But, so, and like I was talking about with like the people that believe wholeheartedly in God, or they are the vice versa, like, because they're fighting, they're polar opposites, they're fighting against each other. They're looking for the same fucking goal, which is the middle ground, balance in both aspects. And it's good to wear a pair of sunglasses when you're in the kingdom of heaven, because it's fucking bright. And if you want to stay balanced, a good pair of shades is nice. When you're in your environment, it's good to have a nice flashlight, because it can be dark without light, right? This is where wisdom is. That's where wisdom resides, right there. That's where philosophy comes from. Those that become awakened are right here. They understand God and Satan are opposite ends of a coin. They understand that the sun and the earth are in a opposite ends of a coin. Active and destructive currents, male and female. It's a duality. In nature. It's duality. It always is. And the balance is where we are. The sun gives off the energy. The earth gives off the body. Doesn't matter what fucking body you're in. You could be a goddamn cat. Because we base our awareness on we base our awareness on our intelligence. That's not a good thing. It doesn't matter how fucking smart you are. When you don't understand that the earth is as important as God, then you're still lost. You're walking in heaven without a pair of shades. You're walking in the forest without a flashlight. You know what I mean? You can't pick a side. I mean, you can, but that's what you get. This is what we get if you do that. You understand that, right? back in the olden days, this is a modern version of it. Sunglasses and a flashlight. And I honestly, this is mine, my understanding of it. This is how I figured it out. Because when I figured it, like, type of shit, the old man, like, I don't know why I'm pointing at it, but the old man back in the old wise man back in like with like tarot cards or whatever, he's a man with a hat and a lantern. Okay, like that's the same thing, right? But this is just more modernized. And anyway, you can't, like, you accepting both is understanding that God is, it's a human construct, because the sun has always been there, even before humans. Like, you want to praise religion and shit like that, that's just us coping with the idea that we don't understand life at all, and we're trying to put a story around it. You want to talk about Genesis with Adam and Eve and type of stuff like that, like, okay, if you want to think of a single cell organism, that's all it starts from. You want to represent that as God, go ahead. But something comes out of that. Okay, created in God's image, a double cell. Adam's rib creates Eve. There's a third cell organism, 3-cell organism, and it keeps multiplying. Like, that's a good understanding of religion, just based off of what I don't know. It's just that's a whatever. But our environment's gonna develop our evolutionary process. So if we cut ourselves off, like we do with societies, and we take control of our lives, we're sitting here because we're going to use and abuse the material world until it dies, or until Mother Nature fights back, and then we're like, oh, what the fuck? Like, of course it's going to fight back. Of course. It's alive too, if you're too religious. And that's another thing too, like with these aspects. When you hit rock bottom, there's only one place to go, and that's up, right? So if you actually hit rock bottom and you're willing to change, but if you're religious and you try your best to try to not sin, then you're going to become the biggest sinner, because you're ignoring your shadow. The shadow means your other half, the idea of what you think you wouldn't do. Because what you think you wouldn't do, you could do. You just haven't had enough time to live yet. But stating that you wholeheartedly would never, ever, ever is blinding yourself. Blinding. Put on your shades. Because what you're going to be doing is, when you do sin, you're going to be hiding it, which is going to make you a liar too. I know this kind of went more of a little bit of a religious aspect. Like, I have talked about active current and destructive current before. Like, our active current comes from the burning of an essence, in this sense, or matter, atoms, whatever, gas. And this is consuming. Everything moves in. That's where gravity comes from. You cut off the energy from the sun, your body is going to smoke to the ground, and it will stay there until it's consumed, right? Anyway, I think it's a good place to stop. Talk to you later.